Good evening and welcome to News Night. I'm Amritpal Singh. This is a show in which we tell you what happened in the country and around the world in the day gone by. Over the next 1 hour, we'll talk about the major happenings. The Prime Minister addressed the Combined Commanders Conference, gave a call for indigenization, pushing for more made-in-India defense items and making the Indian military a futuristic force. Also, we'll talk about how the Pope, who's on a 4-day visit to Iraq today, met the Shia leader of Iraq, Ali Sistani, and called for peaceful coexistence, whereas Sistani called for religious leaders to call upon the great powers of the world to exercise restraint and and to prefer peace over war. This and much more over the next 1 hour. I'm Amritpal Singh. Let's begin with the headlines we're tracking at this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the valedictory session of the Combined Commanders Conference at Kevadia in Gujarat, emphasizes the need of armed forces to take note of the challenging technology landscape and develop the nation's military into a future force. Politics heats up in Bengal. BJP announces candidates for 57 seats. Suvendu Adhikari to contest against Mamta Banerjee in Nandigram. Big jolt to Mamta as senior TMC leader and former Railways Minister Dinesh Trivedi quits the party to join the BJP. Election fever grips other poll-bound states as well. Seat sharing finalized between AIA-DMK, BJP to now contest on 20 seats. MDMK also joins hands with the DMK, MDMK to contest on 6 seats. Though under the DMK symbol, DMK and Congress yet to finalize seat sharing. CPIM and DMK talks still inconclusive. Kerala Congress mulling over candidates in Kerala. COVID vaccination gains pace in the country. Senior citizens show real enthusiasm for the vaccination drive. Turnout in record numbers. Many leaders and Tibetan spiritual leader Dalai Lama also gets vaccinated. Centre rushes high-level multidisciplinary public health teams to Maharashtra and Punjab in view of the increase in the number of daily new COVID-19 cases being consistently reported by these states. Teams visit the hotspot areas in these states and ascertain the reason for the surge. States urge to increase share of RT-PCR tests in districts dependent on high levels of antigen testing. Another effort to create more awareness about Jan Aushadhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address the third Jan Aushadhi Divas celebrations on Sunday via video conferencing. PM dedicates the 7500th Jan Aushadhi Kendra at Shillong during the event. Pope Francis holds a historic meeting with Iraq's top Shia cleric Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani in the holy city of Najaf, makes a passionate appeal for coexistence in a land torn by sectarianism and violence. India defeats England by an innings and 25 runs on the third day of the fourth and the final test match in Motera. 3-1 series victory secures India a place in the ICC World Test Championships final against New Zealand. Rishabh Pant is the man of the match. So those were the headlines we're tracking at this hour, and now the news in detail. Let's begin with politics in Bengal, which it continues at feverish pitch in the state. As the election approaches, leaders are also deciding to align with parties of their choice. Former Railways Minister Dinesh Trivedi changed tracks to come on to the BJP on Saturday, quitting the TMC, even as BJP selected Suvendu Adhikari to take on Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee in the Nandigram constituency.
Nandigram in West Bengal is set to witness the battle royale for this edition of the Assembly election after Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee decided to fight from Nandigram BJP announced the name of former TMC leader Shivendu Adhikari to take on Didi.
नंदीग्राम से श्री शुभेंदु अधिकारी जो पहले टीएमसी सरकार में मंत्री भी थे, वह वहां से नंदीग्राम से चुनाव लड़ेंगी। पार्टी ने उनको प्रत्याशी बनाया है। परिवर्तन की लहर चल रही है, सत्ता परिवर्तन की लहर है और वह लहर कुशासन भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ है, ममता सरकार के तानाशाही रवैये के खिलाफ है।
The assembly seat will see the most intense and high-pitched electoral war between Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and her protege turned bête noire, Shivendu Adhikari. The battle, it seems, has set the mood for the entire election. BJP versus TMC. Former Trinamool Congress MP Dinesh Trivedi is the latest in a long list of high-profile defectors from the TMC to the BJP over the past few months. He joined the BJP on Saturday in the presence of its President JP Nadda and Union Ministers Piyush Goyal and Dharmendra Pradhan, besides other leaders. Moments after joining the BJP ahead of the assembly polls, Trivedi said that it was a golden moment for him and that he was waiting for this moment.
आज मैं सचमुच ये जनता के परिवार में शामिल हुआ हूँ और हम लोग क्यों शामिल होते हैं कि जनता की सेवा, ये मकसद तो यही होता है ना। अब वहाँ दूसरी पार्टी में मैं नाम नहीं लेना चाहता हूँ, अब सब जानते हैं वहाँ एक परिवार की सेवा होती है, जनता की सेवा होती है कि नहीं मुझे पता नहीं है। हमने कभी अपने विचारधारा को नहीं छोड़ा जहाँ भी हम रहे हैं और मेरे लिए देश सर्वोपरि रहा है और वो हमेशा रहेगा।
BJP President said that Dinesh Trivedi was the right person in the wrong party and now has come to the right party.
वह एक अच्छे व्यक्ति, अच्छा व्यक्तित्व एक गलत पार्टी में है और ये वह भी महसूस करते थे। आज उनको जब हम शामिल कर रहे हैं तो मुझे खुशी भी हो रही है कि नाउ द राइट पर्सन इज इन द राइट पार्टी। सही व्यक्ति सही पार्टी में है जहां उनका उपयोग देश की सेवा में आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में हम कर सकेंगे। अगर हम इनके राजनीतिक जीवन को देखें तो ही हैज ऑलवेज पेड द प्राइस फॉर प्रिंसिपल्स।
Dinesh Trivedi had announced his resignation from the upper house during the first half of the budget session. He is a founding member of the TMC, but the party seems least perturbed over the development. TMC has many other problems to take care of, including those of rebels who are raising their voices after being denied party tickets. West Bengal is set to witness star campaigners in the coming days. Prime Minister will address a rally in Kolkata on Sunday at Brigade Parade Ground. Preparations are afoot for the mega rally.
बंगाल के इतिहास की सबसे बिगेस्ट रैली होगी, सबसे बड़ी रैली होगी और प्रधानमंत्री जी के प्रति बंगाल की जनता में बहुत स्नेह है, बहुत प्यार है और मुझे लगता है कि जिस प्रकार से हमारे पास सूचना प्राप्त हो रही पूरे प्रदेश से तो एक ऐतिहासिक रैली होगी।
Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee will hold a road show in Siliguri on Sunday. The campaign has already hit a crescendo, with the parties leaving no stone unturned to grab the voters' attention. The high-pitched campaign is already reflecting the high stakes that this election has come to acquire for the state and the nation. With Rajesh Raj's inputs, Bureau Report, DD India.
And electioneering has also gathered momentum in other poll-bound states of Tamil Nadu, Kerala. Political parties are busy in finalizing the alliances and seat-sharing arrangement for the upcoming assembly polls. More in this report.
As the poll-bound state Tamil Nadu gears up for the assembly polls, talks are in full swing among the major political parties in finalizing the alliances and giving final touches to seat-sharing arrangement. The ruling AIDMK allotted 20 seats to its ally BJP for the upcoming Tamil Nadu assembly elections. Besides, BJP has also been allotted the Kanyakumari Lok Sabha seat that would go for by-polls following the death of Congress MP Vasanta Kumar. BJP is confident of registering victory at all 20 seats and also at the Kanyakumari seat. The BJP has fielded Pon Radhakrishnan as a candidate for the by-polls to Kanyakumari Lok Sabha constituency. Pon Radhakrishnan had won from this constituency in 2014. However, in 2019 Lok Sabha election, he was defeated by Congress Vasanta Kumar, who had won this seat by a margin of 2.5 lakh votes. On the other hand, seat-sharing negotiation between DMK and Congress continues for the upcoming assembly polls. As of now, no final decision has been taken on that.
Yeah, all between alliance partners, it's natural to have discussions, and sometimes discussions can take a little longer and sometimes they can be quite swift.
On the other hand, second round of seat sharing talks between CPIM DMK remain inconclusive for the Tamil Nadu Assembly polls.
Our CPM delegation and the DMK delegation are negotiation. We met and discussed about the seat sharing. They have told a number and we have told a number. They have told, on behalf of DMK, they are told that after consulting with their leader, they will respond to us. So also we decided, we have said that we will consult our secretariat and inform our stand to them.
In neighbouring state of Kerala, BJP is leaving no stone unturned to woo the voters. The party has been particularly vocal against the policies of the ruling LDF and the opposition UDF in Kerala. BJP may field several prominent faces in this assembly polls. On the other hand, Congress-led United Democratic Front is making every attempt to return to power in the state. As per the report, the state unit has decided on a list of probable candidates for the upcoming assembly polls. The party may announce the list early next week. Bureau Report, TD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the valedictory session of the Combined Commanders Conference organized by the Ministry of Defence at Kevadia in Gujarat. He appreciated the resolute dedication shown by the Indian Armed Forces over many challenges in the last year.
The premier brainstorming event of the military commanders from the three services, the Combined Commanders Conference, was held at Kevadia in Gujarat from 4th to 6th of March. It was for the first time in the history of this conference that the top military leadership closely interacted with JCOs and other ranks. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the valedictory session of the Combined Commanders Conference organized by the Ministry of Defence at Kevadia in Gujarat. The Prime Minister was briefed by the Chief of Defence Staff about the discussions during this year's conference. The Prime Minister expressed his appreciation for the structure and agenda of the conference. He particularly appreciated the inclusion of junior commissioned officers, JCOs and non-commissioned officers in this year's conference. Speaking to the highest civilian and military leadership of the national defence system, the Prime Minister conveyed his strong appreciation for the resolute dedication shown by the Indian Armed Forces over the past year in the context of COVID-19 pandemic and the challenging situation on the northern border. The Prime Minister stressed the importance of enhancing indigenization in the national security system, not just in sourcing equipment and weapons, but also in the doctrines, procedures and customs practiced in the armed forces. He emphasized the need to optimize manpower planning in both military and civilian parts of the national security architecture. He also called for a holistic approach focused on breaking down civil-military silos and on expediting the speed of decision-making. Taking note of the rapidly changing technological landscape, the Prime Minister highlighted the need to develop the Indian military into a future force. The Prime Minister pointed out that the country would be celebrating 75 years of its independence next year and called upon the armed forces to use the occasion to undertake activities and initiatives that would inspire the youth of the country.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the valedictory ceremony of the Combined Commanders Conference 2021 held at Tent City in Kevadia in Gujarat. This is the premier brainstorming event of the highest officials of the three services, wherein defence procurement, national security, multifaceted issues of national security and also the changing scenarios, the modernization, indigenization of the military equipments and defence procurement is discussed, and also the changing scenarios of warfare are discussed. With my camera person Kuldeep, this is Meghna Dev from DD News, Kevadia.
And in a series of tweets, Prime Minister said that the Combined Commanders Conference at Kevadia was a fruitful one. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "The Combined Commanders Conference at Kevadia was a fruitful one. There were extensive deliberations on various strategic subjects. Highlighted the need for making India Atmanirbhar in the defence sector and reiterated the government's support for it. Every Indian is very proud of our armed forces. Their courage is remarkable. Urged the armed forces to think about various reforms that would make the forces even stronger. Also discussed ways to integrate brave veterans in the celebrations to mark 75 years of independence. The Combined Commanders Conference saw some of the innovations by our armed forces that were showcased in the exhibition." Unquote. The third Jan Aushadhi Divas will be celebrated on Sunday. Preparations have already begun to provide further impetus and create awareness about the use of generic medicines. The Prime Minister will address the Jan Aushadhi Divas celebrations at 10 a.m. on Sunday via video conferencing.
Pradhan Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana is a revolutionary scheme which aims to make quality generic medicines available at affordable prices for all. In order to create more awareness about Jan Aushadhi, an entire week from 1st March to 7th March is being celebrated as Jan Aushadhi Week across the nation. The theme being Jan Aushadhi Seva Bhi Rozgar Bhi. The last day of the week, that is 7th March, will be celebrated as the third Jan Aushadhi Divas. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the Jan Aushadhi Divas celebrations on 7th March via video conferencing. He will dedicate to the nation the 7,500th Jan Aushadhi Kendra at Shillong during the event. Prime Minister will also interact with the beneficiaries of Pradhan Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. He will also give away awards to stakeholders by recognizing their excellent work. The Pradhan Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana endeavors to provide quality medicines at an affordable price. The number of stores under the scheme has now grown to 7,499. All the districts of the country have been covered under the scheme. Sales in the financial year 2020-21 led to total savings of approximately 3,600 crore rupees for the common citizens. These medicines are cheaper by 50 to 90% than the corresponding market rates. The Pradhan Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana is bridging the gap between the availability and the affordability of the medicines in India and thereby improving access to many drugs to the last man standing. Bureau Report, DD India.
President Ramnath Kovind has said that the objective of a judicial system is not only to resolve disputes but also to protect justice. To remove the delay in justice is also an important step to protect justice. He was speaking at the inaugural ceremony of the All India State Judicial Academy's Directors Retreat at Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh.
President Ramnath Kovind is on a two-day visit to Madhya Pradesh. While inaugurating the All India State Judicial Academy's Directors Retreat at Manas Bhavan, Jabalpur, the President appreciated the use of technology in the judicial process. Speaking at the inaugural ceremony, the President asked all the High Courts to publish the approved translated versions of their verdicts related to important aspects of public life in their official regional languages.
न्याय व्यवस्था में टेक्नोलॉजी का प्रयोग बहुत तेजी से बढ़ा है। देश में 18,000 से ज़्यादा न्यायालयों का कंप्यूटरीकरण हो चुका है। लॉकडाउन की अवधि में जनवरी 2021 तक पूरे देश में लगभग 76 लाख मामलों की सुनवाई वर्चुअल कोर्ट्स में की गई। साथ ही नेशनल जुडिशियल डेटा ग्रिड, यूनिक आइडेंटिफिकेशन कोड तथा QR कोड जैसे इनिशिएटिव्स की सराहना विश्व स्तर पर की जा रही है। अब ई-अदालत, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग, ई-प्रोसीडिंग्स, ई-फाइलिंग और ई-सेवा केंद्रों की सहायता से जहां न्याय प्रशासन की सुगमता बढ़ी है, वहीं कागज के प्रयोग में कमी आने से प्राकृतिक संसाधनों का संरक्षण भी संभव हुआ है।
Attending the program, Chief Justice of India, Justice S.A. Bobde, presented two books titled Bharat Ke Nyayalay and Madhya Pradesh Ka Nyayik Itihas aur Nyayalay to the President. Justice Bobde, in his address, said that all the judicial academies will have to pay attention to the development of the trainees along with the knowledge of law.
समय के साथ साइबर क्राइम अलग अलग प्रकार के वाद खड़े हुए हैं। आमतौर पर सबसे बड़ा कदम जो लिया गया है वो ये समझा जाता है कि वाद के अधिकार लोकस स्टैंडाई जैसी संकल्पनाओं के मूलभूत परिवर्तन कर हम सिविल वाद से जनहित याचिका तक पहुंच गए हैं। मेरे विचार में सभी अकादमियों में को विधि के ज्ञान के साथ साथ प्रशिक्षु न्यायाधीश के व्यक्तित्व के सर्वांगीण विकास पर भी ध्यान देने की आवश्यकता है।
On the second day of his visit, the President will lay the foundation stone of various development works at Singrampur at a cost of 26 crore rupees and will also attend the Janjatiya Sammelan organized by the MP Tribal Welfare Department. With input from Ajit Dwivedi, Bureau Report, DD India.
And in international news, Pope Francis held a historic meeting with Iraq's top Shia cleric, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, on Saturday in Iraq's holy city of Najaf. Pope Francis, who arrived in Iraq on Friday, is on the first ever papal visit to Iraq. Also, the pontiff is making his first international trip since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. A passionate appeal for coexistence in a land torn by sectarianism and violence. This was the clear message that emerged from this historic meeting between the most powerful figure of the Catholic world and the tallest spiritual leader of Shia Muslims.
Hostility, extremism and violence are not born of a religious heart. They are betrayals of religion. We believers cannot be silent when terrorism abuses religion. We are called unambiguously to dispel all misunderstandings. Let us not allow the light of heaven to be overshadowed by the clouds of hatred. Dark clouds of terrorism, war and violence have gathered over this country. Today, let us pray for those who have endured these sufferings, for those who are still dispersed and abducted, that they may soon return home. And let us pray that freedom of conscience and freedom of religion will everywhere be recognized and respected. These are fundamental rights because they make us free to contemplate the heaven for which we were created.
The Grand Ayatollah also called on world religious leaders to hold great powers to account for wisdom and sense to prevail over war. The meeting took place in the holy city of Najaf during a whirlwind and a risky tour of Iraq. It marked the first time a pope has met with such senior Shia cleric. Iraqi children could be seen lined up along the streets and waved Iraqi and Vatican flags at the Pope. After the meeting, the Pope visited the ruins of the ancient Ur in southern Iraq, revered as the birthplace of Abraham, the father of Judaism, Christianity and Islam. He also attended an inter-religious meeting at the ancient Mesopotamian site. Later in the day, he returned to celebrate a mass in Baghdad. Bureau Report, DD India. And that brings to our In Focus tonight. Our In Focus tonight is the historic papal visit to Iraq. That's what we're discussing tonight on the show, historic papal visit to Iraq. And to join me on the show, I have with me Ambassador D.P. Srivastava, India's former ambassador to Iran, and also I have with me Kamar Aga, senior journalist and commentator. Both gentlemen, many thanks for joining me on the show. Let me come to you first, Ambassador Srivastava. The Pope has called for a message of peace, a call for coexistence after meeting Ali al-Sistani, the Grand Ayatollah of the Shia spiritual leader of Iraq. How do you see this visit?
It's a historic visit. The Pope is visiting the cradle of civilization and one of the oldest sites of Christianity. Christianity came to Iraq in the 1st century AD. It has a contemporary relevance. This is the area which saw a lot of sectarian violence and also interfaith violence, where the ISIS attacked the Kurds, who were mostly Christians. They also attacked Muslims in that area, but one of the worst victims were the Christians. Pope's predecessor, he had tried to come to this area in 2000. He did not succeed. Pope Francis made it a point to make a visit to this area to bring a healing touch. His meeting with Ayatollah Sistani marks another watershed. Ayatollah Sistani had roused Iraq to resist the ISIS advance by ISIS, and he was responsible for giving a call for protection of Iraqi tradition and the Iraqi minorities.
Okay, so in that sense, you believe it's a historic visit. Kamar Aga, let me bring you in. What is the larger message that this visit will deliver to the world, to Iraqis, to West Asia in particular, or West Asia as we call it?
There are two things. One is that the message for the Iraqi people, particularly the Christian community, which is virtually marginalized and has suffered a lot during the, especially at the time, when ISIS was there, a number of massacres of the people of the community have taken place. So one message for them, whose population is also dwindling. Large number of Iraqi Christians are migrating from Iraq to uh, Western European capitals. So that way, visit becomes very important. Secondly, apart from this, that a broader message he wanted to deal with the Shia community, because this community is big. Iraq is very important, and now not only Iraq but other countries, in the Gulf, large number of Shia that live in, they cannot be ignored, and therefore, I think. The visit will provide a window of opportunity for the Western nations, especially to deal with the Arab Shias, at a time when the other Shia state, Iran, has closed the door. Therefore, the visit becomes, I believe, becomes very important. And secondly, both Ayatollah Ali Sistani, the most revered Shia cleric in the world, and the Pope Babel both have appealed for peace, coexistence, and message which will go not only limited to the Iraq itself, but far wide in the whole of that region. It will have impact on the whole region. And chapter will begin now, I believe. It's not only Iraq, but the Gulf region or Persian Gulf region.
Okay. Kamar, beyond the optics, now let's come to geopolitics. The fact of the matter is that the Christian population dwindled in Iraq post the US invasion. It's down to about 3 lakhs now from 1.5 million pre-2003 before this thing. Today, the same geopolitics plays out. We know US and Iran are at loggerheads. Even this call by Ayatollah Sistani or the Pope for peaceful coexistence, who kills the Christians, who kills the Kurds, who kills the minorities? These are Islamists, these are militants who don't care about either al-Sistani or the Pope or the international opinion. So that does not really change. So the fact remains that this visit might have got the media spotlight, but will it change the situation on ground? Kamar, that question is for you.
Yeah, yes, it will change, because now winds of change are blowing in the Middle East for a number of reasons. One is, the caliphate is no more there. Large number of youth were coming from Europe to the caliphate, Iraq and Syria. They have stopped coming to that. And Syria is more of, 90% Syrian territory has been liberated from the caliphate. They are still there, but they are now, the appeal of the ISIS has gone down among the Muslim youth globally. There are some groups which are still operating. They have the backing of certain countries also. I'm not talking about the South Asia where or in India where they have a backing of Pakistan. They continue to operate and getting support. Otherwise, globally their appeal has declined considerably. And secondly, now change is coming. We have seen in Saudi Arabia also, Saudis are also introduced modernization plan, and under the new plan we have containing, an extremism within the Saudi Arabia, which is the major source
Okay.
from where the extremist elements, is spread all over the initiative. So this change is coming. It is slowly, and with the papal visit, now it will be, the other communities. The Christian community is very important in Iraq. They have been living there for centuries before Islam
True.
were there. So therefore, and Iraq is one country where the Shias, the Sunnis, as well as the Christians, the Yazidis, they have lived in harmony for centuries, Because recent, we have seen the massacres of these communities in recent past. Otherwise, they were, yes, the Shias were having the problem with Saddam Hussein, the regime, not with the Sunni Muslim community over there. So that was the message. Sani has always maintained that that we had a problem with the Saddam Hussein, not the communities. We have to live together in order to rebuild Iraq. That is the main purpose, is to reconstruct. And besides this, I just want to add one thing. There were contacts between the Shia clerics and the Christian community with different denominations, and they were invited. Number of people from holy places like Jerusalem or from Rome, or from Vatican have visited in the past. So now they plan to set up a center in Ur, where the Abraham was born. Yes, so that is another very important holy site for not only Muslim but for also Christians. So this will give boost to the tourism as well, religious tourism, encourage. Iraq needs support from Western nations as well, not only from the Americans or European or from India, from everywhere. They have to rebuild the whole country.
Ambassador Srivastav, Kamar Aga argues the extremist ideology does not enjoy the support that it did. The caliphate has weakened. Is your assessment the same, that this visit would provide an impetus? Because suicide bombings, roadside bombings still do take place. The fault lines do exist still in Iraq.
There are two things. Pope's visit and meeting with Ayatollah Sistani is definitely going to help. It will at least give a very powerful message that the leaders of the two major religions are united in sending a message of harmony in an area which has seen a lot of violence against the Christians. But it will be premature to say that ISIS has been routed. And you have to go back to 2014, the sudden emergence of ISIS. Nobody had, imagine no intelligence agency had reported that there was this this phenomenon which will overtake most of Iraq and Syria. So what appears on the surface is not something which you can be very sure of in the case that they are gone, because ISIS was born of deprivation and disenfranchisement of a large section of Sunni population. Now, if that recurs and if they are not integrated back in the mainstream, this problem might well recur. Now, let me just give you a piece of history. Saddam Hussein, with his many faults, and he was responsible for invasion of Iran, and he was responsible for invasion of Kuwait, and he brought untold suffering on his own people. But, in terms of harmony between different religions or denominations, you have to give him some credit. One of his vice presidents, Aziz, if you recall the 91 war, he was one of the pillars of the Saddam's regime, and he was a Christian. So something went wrong after that. And I think if Iraq is allowed to recover its balance, and if all the communities are integrated in the mainstream, there is a hope that it will lead to communal
some sort of a peace
harmony.
between the communities there. All right, and that's perhaps the message that the Pope wanted to send by holding an interreligious or interfaith meeting at Ur or Babylon, where the river, the Abraham, is believed to be born. Kamaraga, I want to come back to you. Iran has been conspicuous by its silence on the papal visit. What do you make of that?
You know, for Iran, Iraq is very important. Both the countries are dominated by the Shia Muslim community. They are majority in both the countries, you know, and they have good relations, you know. Iraq is a country where Arab nationalism is deep rooted. Iran is a country, you know, where Persian nationalism is also deep rooted. So at times it clashes we have seen, you know, but they have lived together for centuries, and they are they have no problem now, you know. The problem was more when Saddam Hussein was there, his nationalist agenda was created. But now, you know, they have come to term and realize, you know, that Iraq needs Iran's support, you know, especially for development, especially for, you know, it's a bordering state, it's an immediate neighbor. Large number of Iranian pilgrims visits every year to Najaf and Karbala, where Pope has met Ayatollah Sistani. So for them, Iran is also very important. They were silent, they must be watching, you know. They'll come, they will not oppose Papa's visit, because this visit is not a political
political,
you know. It's a basically, you know, a visit, you know, which is deeply rooted in religious and as well as you mentioned, you know, peaceful coexistence. That is good, you know, for Iran. That is good for Iraq or for the region, for that matter. So they will welcome, you know. They may be little late. I don't know why they should have come up. Yeah, we have seen in the past also, you know, they usually take time to react. But anyway, Ambassador Srivastava is there, he would tell better.
Yeah, Ambassador Srivastava, why don't you please comment on this? The Iranian school of theology, their Shia schools are at variance with the Iraqi Shia school. They, while the Al-Sistani school is more rooted at the difference between the state and the mosque or the state and the church, but the Iranians' thought is more theological in nature, so they are at variance ideologically. Could the silence be a result of that? Could it be linked to that?
I don't think so. You know, the Iranian leadership are preoccupied with possibility of opening of talks on the nuclear deal. And this is but natural, because the sanctions have affected the economy. There's also a deep sense of hurt that, you know, they accepted the nuclear constraints and they were denied the fruits. So at this moment, I don't think they are looking at anything other than possibility of opening of the nuclear talks.
All right, so both gentlemen, we leave it there. The Pope visits Mosul, the former stronghold of the ISIS, tomorrow. He'll visit the churches and buildings which still bear the scars of violence perpetrated there. Many thanks, Kamaraga and Ambassador D.P. Srivastava, for joining us on the show and sharing your insights. Thank you. And even as new cases of COVID-19 are on the rise in some states, the vaccination drive is going on full steam across the country. Over 15 lakh people were inoculated against the coronavirus on Friday, the highest in a day so far, taking the total number of vaccine doses administered in the country to over 1.94 crore. Now, these are figures of till Friday. Saturday's figures would still be tabulated tonight, but the vaccination drive is going on full steam.
The COVID vaccination is gaining pace following the start of the second phase of vaccination. On Saturday, union ministers, politicians, ISRO scientists, spiritual leaders and ordinary citizens got their vaccine shots. Actor and politician Hema Malini received the first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine in Mumbai. In the second phase of the COVID vaccination drive, people over 60 years of age and those aged 45 and above with specific comorbid conditions are being vaccinated at various centers in the country. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari and his wife Kanchan Gadkari received the first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine at AIIMS in Nagpur, while Union Minister D.V. Sadananda Gowda took the jab in Bengaluru. Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar also took the vaccine jab at RML Hospital in New Delhi. ISRO scientists, including ISRO Chairman Dr. K. Sivan, also took the dose of coronavirus vaccine on Saturday. Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama was administered the first dose of anti-coronavirus vaccine at Zonal Hospital in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh.
Greater benefit. So that's very important. So I do that. So I want to share. More people should have courage to take this injection.
Amid the vaccination drive in the country, Maharashtra, Kerala, Punjab, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu reported a high number of COVID daily new cases. They cumulatively account for 82% of the new cases reported in the past 24 hours. 18,327 new cases were registered in the last 24 hours. Maharashtra has reported the highest daily new cases at 10,216. It's followed by Kerala with 2,776, while Punjab reported 808 new cases. India's total active caseload has reached 1,80,304. India's present active caseload now stands at 1.61% of India's total positive cases. On the other hand, 21 states and union territories have less than 1,000 active cases. Arunachal Pradesh has reported only 3 active cases. In view of the increase in the number of daily new COVID-19 cases, the central government has rushed high-level multidisciplinary public health teams to Maharashtra and Punjab. They are being deployed to assist the state health departments in COVID-19 surveillance, control and containment measures. In another development, Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan and Member Health Niti Aayog Dr. Vinod K. Paul interacted with health secretaries and MDs NHM of Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Goa, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Union Territories of Delhi and Chandigarh. States were specifically asked to continue with the effective strategy of test, track and treat that had yielded rich dividends at the height of the pandemic. These states have been asked to increase their share of RT-PCR tests in districts dependent on high levels of antigen testing and to refocus on surveillance and stringent containment of those areas in selected districts which are seeing cluster of cases. Bureau Report, DD India.
And under Vaccine Maitri initiative, India has provided coronavirus vaccines to many countries. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that India sent the first consignment of vaccines to Liberia. Dr. Jaishankar said that, and I quote, another landmark with Liberia after the first all-female police unit, India now sends in the first consignment of vaccines, unquote. A consignment of indigenously developed COVID-19 vaccines also reached Somalia. India is providing vaccines to a number of countries in the fight against COVID-19. Earlier, Made in India vaccines also reached African countries Uganda, Mali and Malawi. Another landmark with Liberia after the first female police unit. This is what Dr. Jaishankar had written. Shifting focus to Myanmar, security forces in Myanmar used force on Saturday to disperse anti-coup protesters a day after UN Special Envoy urged the Security Council to take action to quell the junta violence that this week left about 50 demonstrators dead and scores injured. Fresh protests were reported on Saturday morning in the biggest city, Yangon, where stun grenades and tear gas were used against protesters. On Wednesday, 18 persons were reported killed there. Protests also erupted in other parts of the country, with reports of protesters clashing with police and security forces. And let's now take a look at our section, World Wrap. In the United States, the Biden administration is increasingly sounding the alarm over a series of new discovered cyber intrusions that Microsoft said this week were linked to China. The White House said on Friday that the hackers behind the powerful set of digital intrusion have racked up a worrying number of victims. The cyber espionage campaign targeting Microsoft Course Exchange email software poses a serious threat to not only U.S. citizens but people around the world. Quoting the latest job report by U.S. Labor Department, President Joe Biden said on Friday that job gains after COVID pandemic are too slow and his COVID-19 relief bill is urgently needed to boost the economy. The legislation currently under debate sets $400 per week in federal jobless benefits through August 29th on top of state benefits to help Americans who have lost jobs amid economic trauma caused by the coronavirus. The agreement also extends a tax break for businesses for an additional year through 2026. The White House appointed a new economic advisor and big tech critic Tim Wu on Friday. He will help advance President Biden's agenda with regard to the technology sector, including addressing monopoly and market power issues. Tim, a Columbia University professor, has advocated for breaking up big tech companies and has coined the term net neutrality in the past. The White House announced the addition of Wu to its National Economic Council earlier on Tuesday. And at least 20 people were killed and 30 wounded by a suicide car bomb just outside a restaurant near the port in Somalia's capital Mogadishu late on Friday. A state-owned media reported that blast occurred outside the Lul Yamani restaurant near the port, causing destruction of property. No one has claimed responsibility for the blast yet. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are due to appear in an in-depth TV interview with U.S. talk show host Oprah Winfrey on Sunday. Many of the previous TV interviews given by senior members of the royal family have caused crisis for the monarchy. It will be the couple's first interview since stepping back from their royal duties in early 2020. New York City's cinemas reopened on Friday after nearly a year of closure due to the coronavirus pandemic, an encouraging sign for normalcy in the city. Movie houses opened to 25% capacity with no more than 50 people per screen, following New York State guidelines released last month. According to the guidelines, moviegoers must wear masks and obey social distancing rules and are encouraged to use disinfectant wipes and sanitizers. And turning to the big match of the day, India have thumped England by an innings and 25 runs inside 3 days in the fourth and final test to complete a 3-1 series victory in Ahmedabad. India's 13th consecutive test series victory at home also secured their place in the June final of the World Test Championship against New Zealand.
England's series defeat in India was sealed with one final abject batting collapse on the third day of the fourth test in Ahmedabad. Needing 160 to make India bat again, England found themselves losing wickets at regular intervals. Dan Lawrence showed composure in his 50, but England were eventually pulled out for 125 to lose by an innings and 25 runs. Akshar Patel claimed 5 for 48, his fourth 5-wicket haul of the series, and Ravichandra Ashwin 5 for 47, as England lost all 10 wickets in an innings to spin for the third successive test. The home side had earlier extended their first innings from 294 for 7 to 365 all out. Washington Sundar, though, was stranded on 96 not out when the last 3 wickets fell for no runs in 5 deliveries. In taking the series 3-1, India earned a place in the World Test Championship final, booking a meeting with New Zealand in June. England finished 4th in the table. The first of the 5 T20 international between these two sides will kickstart from Friday. Sports Desk, TD India.
So that's it in tonight's Newsnight. Thanks for watching. Namaskar. News.